Alright, so when it comes to installing the switch and running the wiring, in the instructions here they give you this template to cut out. It's like a rectangle inside of another rectangle, and then I just held it on with my fingers and traced around it with a Sharpie, and then I went around the Sharpie lines with this utility knife here, and I just kept going over it and going over it. I don't know, probably about 10 times on each side until I got it all the way through the hard plastic there. It just has to be on a flat surface, and you just have to make sure you're not cutting into anything on the other side. Alright, so now that switch should just should go right in there. There we go. And see, this thicker side of the switch will be your inflate, so it'll push the bladder outward towards your back. And this is a deflate, which will suck the air bladder inward away from your back. Later I'm going to make a label for it that'll say like lumbar adjust or something. But with a label maker, I'll make it nice. In order to get good access back there, there's, oh, where did it go? Oh, I think it's over here. So there's this little Torx bolt that you take off. That goes right here, and this goes over it. So after you take that off, you get this whole panel loose, and then you can pull this wiring harness off, because General Motors was stupid enough to face it in this direction, so the plastic tab is like inside where it's hard to reach. But if you open this up, then you can reach in here and get to it, and then plus then you can get access back here to install the switch. And then I ran the wire for the switch up this way. Oh yeah, also the tube for the air bladder, I plugged it in here. And this is the pump or the motor for the air bladder. I attached it on here. This actually moves a lot when you adjust your seat, like up and down and the angle of your seat. So I didn't attach it anywhere over here. I decided to do it here. Seems to be a safe spot. And I put it under here because if you put it on top of here, you might not have enough clearance under the seat, because the rails right here sit on the floor, and I wasn't sure how much room there'd be, so that seems to be a pretty safe spot. But I almost ended up turning this around 180 degrees because the wire harness from the switch almost didn't have enough room to plug in right here. Not that much room. Then the other end is going to plug in over here. This clips in. See if I can clip this one in. And they give you enough wiring harness here if you're just doing the wiring under the seat, or maybe to like a center console. But if you want to run the wires all the way to like a fuse box, you probably need to get longer wires. Oh, I guess I can plug that in later. And I'm just going to take this and just tuck it all in under here probably. I don't really think it's going to go anywhere. But if I wanted to, I could zip tie it somewhere. But I think it'll be pretty safe down here. And okay, so for the hard wiring that you have to do yourself, I decided to run the ground wire over here, and originally it has this on it, so I just cut that off. And then they give you this ring terminal with it. I wish it was a heat shrink terminal. It's not, and I wish they gave you more than one size. But so there's this bolt right here that I decided to use to ground it on this metal frame of the seat, which I think is going to work just fine. And then for your 12 volt hot wire, this wiring harness that goes to the seat switch, for those of you that have a power driver seat like I do, this red wire is always hot. Even when the car is off, it always has 12 volts. So I just spliced into it. And there's 7 other wires on the switch, so the way I think it works is I think one of them is a ground, and I think the other 6 wires, whenever you move that switch in different directions, they'll send power through each of these 6 different wires to adjust the seat in 6 different ways, because it's a 6-way seat adjustment, 6-way switch. So I think that's how that works. But this wire always has power, so just tap into it. They don't give you a connector for that. It comes with this on the end, so I just cut it off, and I used a blue heat shrink butt splice, the 14 to 16 gauge size, and then I used a lighter for the heat shrink on here, as you can see. Oh, another thing I had to do is originally this had all this I forget what the heck you call that. It goes on around the wire to protect it or keep it clean or whatever, but it's not really necessary inside the car. It's not going to hurt anything if you take it off. So I just used a pair of scissors and I cut a whole bunch of it off. That way I can get access to these wires. And this was already open in this area, so I pulled that red wire through after I cut it. I pulled it through here and out here just to give me even more room to work with. So yeah, the only thing is if you don't have a power driver seat, then you can either run a wire to the what do you call it, like the power socket, the 12-volt power socket, or some people call it a cigarette lighter, in your center console. There's also one in the back of the center console you could tap into. The only thing is you have to take apart your center console and maybe drill a hole in your center console where you're not going to really see it underneath and to the side of the seat. Or the other option is you run it through like your door trim all the way up to one of your fuse boxes. But since I have a power driver seat, this is the easy way to do it. Hopefully later in the future I'll eventually do this on the passenger seat sometime next year. But for right now I just got to reinstall it and test it out.